Hello. Quick announcement, please. This 58 Keys channel, as I record this, is about to reach 10,000 subscribers. Nothing happens actually at 10,000. I mean, I might need a few more chairs. Maybe you could scrounge up some biscuits and together we'll put a lot of kettles on often or something. But I want something to happen at 10,000. So it will. From about 2 weeks' time from now, the date, I can't quite set the date yet, but about 2 weeks' time, there's going to be a second 58 Keys video every week from then on. It'll come from this shed, actually, rather than my usual office. And this new video will be less about technology, more about writing. It's the 58 Keys Writing Workshop. And thanks to the 58 Keys Patreon members, who seemingly know me so well already, I've got 85 ideas for videos. I mean, things on characters, dialogue, rejection, you name it. But it's going to have to work like this if it's to be of any use at all. I will start with how I do, whatever it is, but then you must talk to me in the comments about how you do it, and most especially, definitely, if you disagree, okay? And also, similar thing, if there is a writing question that you think I ought to know the answer to, I mean, full-time freelance writer, should I know it? Then please ask me in the comments here or by emailing me at wg@williamgallagher.com. I think email might be handier for it. So wg@williamgallagher.com, please. Do give me a bit of time though, okay? Because I might have to pop off to do some research in order to look good when I know the answer. That's coming up. The 58 Keys Writing Workshop, about actually writing instead of actual writing technology and possibly putting off writing. It's all coming soon. I'm so keen on this. For now though, back to your regularly scheduled 58 Keys. This time, about writing on the iPad, sometimes outdoors, in the sunlight. Let's see how that works. That's not too reflective. Probably British sunlight, not a problem yet. Previously on 58 Keys, I covered 5 things that iPads do to make typing on, directly on the glass. So, I mean, straight onto the iPad, not an external keyboard inside, not a separate keyboard, anything like that. 5 things that iPads themselves do to make doing that easier and faster. They're all things that I think are tremendously useful, but I also know Apple doesn't exactly shout about any of them. Any of those or any of these. Because here are 5 or so more tips for writing on the glass of an iPad. Or maybe this is better. How about tips for being a writer who writes on the glass? Who writes on the glass? Sounds like we're a bit drunk there, doesn't it? Hello, I'm William Gallagher and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on, well, Macs and iPhones, but also particularly today, iPads. Do subscribe or support 58 Keys on Patreon, because there's always so much to talk about all of these devices. And this time, I think maybe surprisingly to me, so much of it that we can talk about are these little hidden details. I mean, they're so small, and yet they're so very useful when you know that they're there. Such as this one. Let's do this one first, because this is the only tip today that requires an Apple Pencil. I can put this down. So, iPad, Apple Pencil, which I found actually once. I can't believe I found an Apple Pencil. I'm so glad I did. But anyway, first and also the quickest thing. With your iPad asleep in front of you, tap the Apple Pencil against the screen. And I think that might even warrant a ta-da! The iPad is now awake. You're in Apple Notes. You're in a new Apple Note specifically, and you can just immediately start writing, I suppose with a pencil, but also just typing on the glass, like I said. I also said a new note. That's the default, a brand new note in Apple Notes. But if you go to Settings, Apps, Notes, there's Access Notes from Lock Screen, and you can set it to instead automatically resume whatever your last note, whatever the last note you did on the iPad was, to take you right back to where you were and what you were doing. I should say that thing of settings, apps, notes, that's in iPadOS 18. With older versions of iPad OS, I suppose it's simpler really. You go to settings and then all of your apps are listed in a potentially very long list at the bottom. You scroll through a little bit, you scroll through all of that lot and you come to notes, and then you go into notes and it will have this same thing, about this same option about what you get when you actually tap the pencil on the screen. Resume or new, okay, it's entirely up to you. But I suggest that you set it to be resume because of this. If you tap the pencil, opens up, it calls up the last note. If that's not what you want, you can always tap the new note button and start something else. Whereas if it's set to show you a new note every time, there is only that new note. You cannot access the last one or any other one. New with iPadOS 18, by the way, Apple's added these other options to do with whether or not it just opens a last note or whether it just always requires you to enter your passcode regardless, or use Face ID depending on the iPad, maybe Touch ID, and the times, how long you want to leave it before. Yeah, lots of little extra security options which might answer the question I think you've got, since you're a writer who can't help thinking of plots. If someone can get into your iPad by just tapping their Apple Pencil against the screen, that means they've opened and unlocked the iPad without a passcode, without Face ID or, okay, yeah, depending on the iPad, Touch ID, without biometric security locks and just straight around them. Yeah, no. The iPad opened that new note, yes, or that last note, that resumed note, but that is it. Once you're done with that, or once you try leaving notes, once you try doing anything else at all, anything whatsoever on the iPad, you're then asked for the passcode, for the Face ID, for the Touch ID, whatever it is. You're asked to authenticate to prove that you are you. It's possible to swipe down to get control center, so you could see some of the things there, but if you actually try to use any control, nah, forget it, Pally. It says you're not doing nothing until you've unlocked the iPad properly. So there, I think it actually says so there. So, oh yeah, no, you can also take a screenshot by pressing the physical side buttons on the iPad, but then the most you could do with that screenshot is save it to this iPad. You can't even look at it again. You certainly can't send it somewhere, share it, not without unlocking. One thing which, well, actually, I tell you what, let's make this tip number 2, because I'm going to lose count. And tip number 2, where did you put that note? Once I've done a note, like that, hurriedly tapping on the screen, or, okay, actually sometimes any time I've written anything in Apple Notes, I occasionally find it difficult to go back to find it later. Ultimately, all of my notes, I'm reasonably organized about this. They end up in specific folders, and so I know I can go to these folders and things. But these ones, the hurried notes, they're kind of left loose, really hanging about until I organize them. So you can organize them by creating a smart folder. You tap here in Apple Notes to show folders, and then here to make a new one. Fine, give it a name, but then choose this smart folder option. I'm telling you, I did not actually expect quite so many options, but all I want is a folder that shows me in any notes I created today. So yeah, whatever it is that I'm going to be looking for later, whatever folder I've neatly saved it into or left hanging loosely about randomly somewhere, as long as I did it today, I will find it again here in that smart folder. That does suggest I need to open this folder and move the note to somewhere or something. What happens about yesterday and things, yeah, but if I forget and I'm really struggling, I can just change that smart folder to show me yesterday's as well, the last few days, all of that. I said you could take a screenshot using the side buttons, and, well, not only can you, but that's how I've been doing it for the last 7 or 8 years. Got to be more than that by now. 8 centuries, say that. But instead, tip number 3, unless you've been fiddling, by default you can instead just swipe a finger up from the bottom left, and there you go, it's done. There's a screenshot. A finger or Apple Pencil, by the way, doesn't matter, just from the corner, swipe. I don't quite know why I find that so satisfying, but perhaps it's an indicative thing. It tells you basically how many screenshots I have to take on an average day. That might speak to you as well. Oh, it's fun. Just do it anyway. Okay. If you have fiddled, by the way, and I mean, there isn't actually a great deal of fiddling you can do here, but you can do some. And one that is possible, one that you can control that swipe from the bottom left, and you can also control a swipe from the bottom right, the left and right bottom corners. And you can have it so that either or both or neither do that swipey screenshot thing, or you could have it so that either or both or neither do this, which is swipe up to get another new quick note, specifically a quick note. You choose all these corner stuff in settings, multitasking and gestures, by the way, and way down the bottom there's a swipe finger from corner option, which you can also just, like I say, switch off completely if you don't happen to like it, but it's so good, why would you do that? While we're here, by default, all of these other gestures you can see are turned on. So for, is this tip 3 or 4? Yeah, whatever. With 4 or 5 fingers, and you're out to whatever the current app is, and into this, which is the app switcher. Or swipe again with 4 or 5 fingers, right, and you move from one app to the next app that you've been using for it. This is a favourite too. Tip 5, I should have written this down. We'll cope. Pinch and then spread in with 3 fingers, and you copy whatever is selected on the screen. So select something and then pinch 3, and then do the opposite, pinch out with 3 fingers and you paste. Okay, on the bad side, it's actually, I find it really tricky to get that right and to copy instead of undoing or redoing, which is a 3-finger swipe left or right. But on the good side, you already know that you can copy some text from one application to another. I think you've come across this, fine. But just on the great side, this works, the pinch and then go to another app and draw it. But because this is Apple and your iPad is connected to your iPhone, they're both connected to your Mac as well. Now I think about it, you can copy from one device and paste on the other. Seriously, it's like picking something up from one device and dropping it on the other, plopping it down on the other device. Do that in front of an Android user. Yeah, but practice it a lot first. This is all getting away from writing, I think, actual writing, and into kind of, I suppose, the business of writing and managing it, copying and pasting, being a writer with an iPad, all these things. But let me just take a quick step back for what I suppose must now be the 6th of 5 tips. Please tell me you're not taking notes. Depending on the app you use, these days, iPads will do their best to save you typing by predicting not just the rest of the word you're currently doing, but the next word and possibly even the next couple of words. Possibly it changes. Okay, it just does that for you. But you can twiddle and fiddle a little. Settings, general, keyboards, and there it is. There's an on-off option for predictive text and predictive text in line. The latter one means the typing, the one that types your prediction into your document for the next word or the next couple. When you're typing like that, if you like what it suggests for you, just tap the space bar and it moves the cursor and you carry on writing the next words. And if you don't like what it's suggesting, well, you just keep typing and you ignore it. You do you, type what you want, and its suggestions go away. So I quite like that, but you don't have to. You can kill it. While you're in settings, general, keyboard though, also take a look at text replacement. This is very good for addresses, for phone numbers, words, or maybe names that you're forever misspelling. It's good for anything to do with text, as long as that text is quite short. It isn't good at all. It just simply can't do whole passages of text, standard replies you might need to send to people. It doesn't do any of that. There are third-party apps like Text Expander that are used for this, and they're very useful, but where they are actually superb on the Mac and less good on the iPhone and the iPad. Apple limits them quite a bit on the iPad, I find. Still, anyway, commonly typed short text. You can pop it in here and have what's called a little trigger. So, for example, I type the letters X and D, and my address is entered. That's not actually my address, but you get the idea. And then the thing of this text expansion is it works anywhere on the iPad, any app at all. You set it once, works anywhere on the iPad and anywhere on the iPhone and on the Mac. You set up one of these text expansions on any of these devices and it is available to you instantly on all of them, in every app on any of them. And I really mean you can use it anywhere. Pop up into Safari's address bar. Why not? Type XD in my case. There's my address. Very useful. So you can expand text anywhere at all. But of course, for us as writers, the most useful place to do it are in documents. Well, we're right away. Documents and notes, I suppose. And speaking of which, let me skip back. I kind of just zoomed by it. The quick note thing. Let me go back to that for a second. So that thing where you swipe up from a corner and you start writing. Okay, good, useful enough. But if you do that while you were previously in Safari, you're in Safari and then you swipe it up, the quick note offers you an extra feature. It gives you a button that lets you add a link in the note itself to that website that you were in. So when you're doing research, also actually, quick note when you're in an email message, and you can add a link to that message. Or at least you can if you use Apple Mail. I can't be totally sure that it works in all other email apps. Whereas I am sure that this works with them all. Just as I am sure that there are times when you need to send multiple attachments to someone. I'm kind of mentally getting my fingers ready for this. Photos, documents, anything. You got to send loads of them once. Tell you what, let me show you with photos. In the Photos app, okay, just as an example, press and hold on one image, any image, and then wiggle it about a bit, and with your finger still holding down, tap another finger on any other photo that you want to send, or photos or videos. Just tap each one. As you tap, that image or video that you tap on flies to underneath your first finger. Keep pressing that finger down, and then you can drag the lot to, say, mail. Yeah, sometimes, okay, it's a bit of a contortion to switch to the app you want, but you get there, you get used to it, and sometimes when you're in it, it's so useful. You lift your finger away, right, when you've got to the point you want, and then all of these photos, all of these documents, whatever they are attached to that one email. And I said photos or whatever, but it's the same with documents in the Files app. Files is oddly hard to find your way around, sometimes I find. But this does work there. You got where you want, select everything, do it. Actually, I don't know why Files is sometimes a bit of a pain, really. But for example, I wish we could just add a folder of documents to the dock on the iPad so that you can forget the Files app, just go straight to whatever it is that we're working on, whatever we need. Now, and you can't do that, but you can do this. You can add a folder of apps to the dock. It's not the same thing at all, but it's useful. Here, for example, are all the iPad apps I happen to use in making 58 keys, or nearly anyway, and I can press and hold until it all jiggles, and then just drag that whole folder to the dock. Note, by the way, you have to drag it to the left of this very faint vertical line. That's because everything to the right of that, it's not draggable. It's a recently used application, and it's the iPad that decides what goes on that side. Everything onto the left, that's up to you. I have now entirely lost track of how many tips this is. No, let's work this out. Quick notes from the lock screen. That was one. New note or resume. Was it? Two. Swipe for screenshot. Swipe for quick note. Smart folders. Copy and paste. Cuddly toy. Gestures. Undo. Redo. Links. Quick notes. Grabbing. Yeah, all of those. Okay, moving folders. Moving folders to the dock. I like that one. Bit of complaint about the files. Yeah, okay. All right. Actually, I said that about counting and I still forgot. Whatever. One last thing, okay, about the Files app anyway. When you need it, this Files app can be really useful. Go into Files, find an image file, okay? Press and hold on it, and you get a pop-up menu. You get that pop-up menu no matter what it is you're pressing, but just for example, a good example is a photo. Pressing and holding on it, okay? So, is an image, could be text, could be document, could be anything, but press and hold, and you get this nice pop-up menu. Could be a folder as well, actually. The menu is different depending on what it is that you're pressing and holding on. It's a context menu, but if it is an image, the menu includes a quick actions option. In that, you can rotate images. You can do some conversions, like say from JPEG to PNG if you need, or right there, you can make it into a PDF. Truly, files is more useful than I usually give it credit for. I suspect my problem with files is that I've been using an iPad since they first came out, and files was nowhere to be seen. So it was introduced much, much later, and so to me it feels like it's a late addition, an adjunct. It's something on top of the iPad instead of part of it for me, but I'm wrong there. It is part of the iPad. Yeah. Still, actually, basically, I'm going to explore the Files app far more now that we've been talking about it. If you would like a 58 keys all about the Files app on the iPad, well, I'd watch that. Let me know, and you may make me feel justified for playing around with files and exploring the app. Just for you, not for me, just for you. Putting off your writing, not mine. One thing I should definitely do, basically, is play around more with writing on an iPad with an external keyboard, or at least specifically do it with Apple's Magic keyboard, because it's surprising how much there is to say about that too. A lot of unexpected benefits, I think, in the Magic keyboard too. It is all playing, I suppose. All of these tips are ones you can find when you play about, but I think we don't often get time to play about when we're writing. But then if we do, if nothing else, once you know these tips will save you time in the writing. Play a bit now, profit later. I did just say if nothing else, and there is something else. I did not know this was a thing, but look at that. I could be showing you that as an example of handwriting that I envy. Certainly could be doing that. But that video, that clip you just saw, is from one of very, very many autonomous sensory meridian response, have I got that right? ASMR videos that are just writing and tapping on iPads with the Apple Pencil sometimes. And they are remarkably soothing. Look what iPads can do even when you're just watching a video about them. That's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now, write more. Take care of yourself. Those two are the same thing. I think it's important. Take care of yourself and do it by writing more. And I will see you soon.